Hey everyone, Carl back with Littleroot Lessons, bringing you a deep dive focusing on the requested Porygon-Z today. Remember that if you like what you see, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications for when new videos go live. It's the best way to interact with us and help us grow our YouTube channel. We're fast approaching 250 subscribers. We'd love to hit that before the end of June. And maybe we'll do a little bit of something if we can hit that goal before the end of June. So, Porygon-Z. Porygon-Z is a hyper-offensive threat that was very popular in Series 6. And it did one job, and it did that one job very, very well. It was to blow up your opponent's Pokemon before they had a chance to do anything. Porygon-Z was popularized with other hyper-offensive threats. Was very, very good alongside Clefairy, because at the time, Togekiss was banned. We never really got to see Porygon-Z and Togekiss on the same team for the most part, because a lot of what was happening was Series 6 and its funny ban system. Back to Porygon-Z though. Porygon-Z's job is to Dynamax and pick up as many KOs as possible before your opponent has a chance to kind of respond back in kind. So it's very one-dimensional on its face, but there are some tricky things that Porygon-Z can do that some other hyper-offensive threats usually can't, just because of what Porygon-Z has access to thanks to its evolution, its pre-evolutions of Porygon and Porygon 2. So, introduced via the the Isle of Armor DLC. I'm used to saying Crown Tundra DLC. Porygon-Z didn't start to make waves until the tail end of Series 5 and was just dominant throughout Series 6. There was small inklings that Porygon-Z was going to be a powerhouse coming in out of Series 5 going into 6. And then once they banned Togekiss, Incineroar, and all these other popular Pokemon, it just took off. Clefairy Porygon-Z was a very popular duo. You had to be prepared for it. It dominated the format, to say the least. After Series 6, though, when we got all of our Crown Tundra Mons in Series 7, it kind of didn't stand up and stay up as well as it did. A lot of the other Pokemon got to come back in Series 7. Togekiss, Incineroar, and all of them. Incineroar made a very big impact against opposing Porygon-Z, just because it could fake out Clefairy, and then your partner Pokemon could knock out Porygon-Z. So it kind of faltered and didn't keep its high usage like it was in Series 6, and it continued into Series 8, where it did not stand up to the power of restricted Pokemon. However, as Series 9 has started to kind of develop and kind of flesh it out even more, Porygon-Z has actually started to see an uptick in total overall play. If I remember correctly, there were 3 Porygon-Zs in a recent Mount Silver event. I know Porygon-Z had a high finish in one of our Rumbles, so it's starting to look like it's going to try and take over the format again and be this pseudo-esque normal type sweeper. So, partners for Porygon-Z tend to lean towards the more supportive side because Porygon-Z just hits like a truck. Pokemon that have redirection like Clefairy, Togekiss, and Indeedee, Amoonguss, these are all great options to pair alongside Porygon-Z. On the other side of that spectrum, you could do things like Whimsicott for Tailwind, Grimmsnarl for Screens, just to make yourself a little more bulky. And if those support options don't really work out for you, you could always play other fast physical threats. Cinderace was a very popular pairing, just like thinking about it. Porygon-Z hits a lot on the special side, Cinderace is fast and it's on the physical side, and likes a lot of the same Pokemon that Porygon-Z does. Landorus kind of fills the role of hits 2 axes here. So it has Intimidate, which weakens Urshifus and other fighting types that give Porygon-Z problems. It also is a physical attacker that if they try to come in and snarl you down, Landorus doesn't care about the snarls and is going to be able to deal a bunch of damage back. So it's just kind of that balance of special and physical damage. So looking at what Porygon-Z tends to do, like on teams, is pretty easy to figure out. Most of them are adaptability Hyper Beam things. A lot of the times they carry Dark Pulse, Protect. The current common set is Protect, Nasty Plot, Dark Pulse, Hyper Beam, which I'm not the biggest fan of that. Nasty Plot means you don't have to Dynamax as often, but it means you're a little bit more vulnerable and you don't have as great a coverage against the rest of the format. Other moves that Porygon-Z has known to run in the past: Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, Tri-Attack. These are all fairly common moves. One of the new trends that's starting to tick up and become a little more popular is running Trick Room in that last slot instead of Protect. Because when you max it, it's going to become Max Guard. It doesn't care what it was before, but when you get to that outside of Dynamax phase and you need to take over a game or need to reverse a Trick Room or something, you have the option to. We'll talk about that when we get into sets here in a second. Common items: Life Orb's most common item. Not surprised at all by this. Hyper Beam, Life Orb, Adaptability, Porygon-Z knocks out a lot of things. Silk Scarf in that same vein can do the same thing, but a lot of the time Life Orb is not taken, so it's Life Orb's the easier item to put on. Other items are like Focus Sash, Choice Specs. I have an Assault Vest set that I played in Series 6 that we'll be talking about when we get to move sets. It's a little bit on the bulkier side and doesn't do the exact same thing that the hyper offensive Porygon-Z does, but it can still do a lot of powerful stuff. So let's get these first two out of the way. As you can see, Adaptability, Hyper Beam, very, very common, very, very powerful. What most Porygon-Zs are built around. As I mentioned earlier, Life Orb is the most common item. Silk Scarf is the second most common. This first set is just the standard 3 attacks plus Protect. The middle set is that Trick Room set that I mentioned earlier. It has access to Swift and Hyper Beam and Dark Pulse because it has that Silk Scarf and it wants to be able to just spam normal type moves all the time. And Swift and Tri-Attack are kind of interchangeable here. Tri-Attack gives you a chance for status, but Swift hits both Pokemon and doesn't check accuracy, so it just kind of depends on what you like to do. As for this last set is my bulky Assault Vest set that I played with a long time ago. This was Hyper Beam, Dark Pulse, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam. It hits Landorus, it hits Celesteela, it hits everything under the sun. It hits almost everything super effectively, or at least neutral in some shape or fashion. Quiet nature because we are analytic, so you pair this alongside a Grimmsnarl. So you set up screens to where you just don't die, and you get analytic boosts because you're at 85 speed against people who are expecting to try and outspeed you. So it kind of throws them off their game. It's a very best of one type of Porygon-Z. Definitely would not recommend this if you're playing best of 3, but if you're just looking to climb ladder, this Porygon-Z is a very gotcha Porygon-Z and will get a lot of opponents off guard. It also pairs really well with the standard Togekiss or Clefairy if you're looking for something to just kind of trick opponents that way. So what's the best way to build a Porygon-Z? Usually you grab a redirection user and you usually grab some way to make sure Porygon-Z outspeeds, and that's the core of your team. Whimsicott, Clefairy, Porygon-Z is very, very common. Another one, like now popularized, you could probably do is like Tornadus, Clefairy, Porygon-Z. Something like that. Porygon-Z needs to focus on taking out opponents. If you aren't knocking out things, you aren't winning the game. It's a lot like Regigigas. So have a backup plan in case Porygon-Z can't pick up the KOs you need. This usually involves the physical attackers in the back, like Cinderace, Landorus, Urshifu, stuff like that. Or if you're playing that Trick Room set, you can play a Glastrier or something slower like a Torkoal, things like that. Also, having a Ghost type on your team to switch into a potential stab fighting type attack into Porygon-Z is a good idea. Spectre's are very good, is a very good Ghost type that can do this kind of situation. Other Ghosts like Dragapult, Dusclops, trying to think of other Ghost types that are popular right now. Gourgeist was popular back then, but not so much now. Alola Marowak's a good option. Alola Marowak's a very good check to Regieleki, which we just talked about last week. iCard will be up there. But Alola Marowak and Porygon-Z kind of pair really well together because Porygon-Z can set that Trick Room, and then Alola Marowak can come in and just clean up afterwards after the Dynamax is over. Beating Porygon-Z is about as easy as trying to just play with it. It's very frail. Outside of the bulky Assault Vest set I've been playing, Porygon-Z is usually max special attack, max speed, so a couple good hits usually take it out if you can get around the Clefairy. Urshifu is a really good counter just because it naturally outspeeds and can hit it super effectively with a very powerful close combat. So if you have a partner Steel type that can take out the Clefairy Urshifu can go in with a close combat and put the opposing Porygon-Z at roughly 10-20% HP depending on your set. And outside of just trying to outspeed it, Dragapult, Inspector, and those other ghost types can also be a wall. Porygon-Z likes to spam Max Strike. It's very Regigigas-esque when it comes to that kind of situation, so throwing that ghost type in front of that Max Strike means it just wasted a turn. One downside is you have to be aware of Max Darkness. Dark Pulse is usually the second most common move because it can't hit ghost types with its stab, so it wants to have coverage for that. And Dark Pulse is the best one it can get. So just beware of that and just kind of have that in the back of your mind if you're thinking about that plan. So to wrap up with Porygon-Z, it's a very powerful Dynamax threat that's just kind of been hiding away from the spotlight for a while, but is ready to start making its way back into the limelight. As it started to tick up in usage, I'd be careful to watch out for other fighting types. Conkeldurr, Urshifu is going to start to get popular again if Porygon-Z gets popular. Conkeldurr was a very good answer back then. It's probably going to be starting to see a little bit more play now. Cinderace with high jump kick is a little bit more common now because Cinderace is getting more common. So that's another good fighting coverage to hit Porygon-Z with. So it's just something to think about. And when playing with Porygon-Z, make sure to be ready to deal with the redirection tailwind aspects for the team. Porygon-Z is very hyper offensive, but it really relies on its support. If you can take out the support out from underneath it, Porygon-Z kind of just falls flat. If it can't get those speed boosts, if it can't get that knockout that it's really, really needed to do, you kind of can just not get run over by the Cyber Deck. And with that being said, I want to thank everyone for hanging out and watching today. Make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Check us out on Twitter. All of our handles are there on screen. Check out the Discord, links in the description down below. And have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever out in the world. And we will see you all on Friday with Togekiss. Bye, guys.